everybody, it's me, Kai Man, and listen, I want to talk to you guys about something I've really been thinking about. It's 2019, we're going into the year of 2020, and I've been thinking about some things that we still do that can consider us slaves. Now, these are just a few things that I'm going to talk about, and today I'm going to talk about 5 ways to tell if you're still a slave. Now, these are just 5 things that I came up with, for now. There are some things that I've been mentally taking notes of that we do as a people. And I'll probably be talking about some of those things as well before we get into 2020. And I may even elaborate on some of the 5 that I'm speaking about now. But here are 5 ways to tell if you're still a slave. You're still a slave if you still say any of these things. 1, if you say Black people don't go to counseling or see a therapist, and you're a Black person who has had trauma or know someone else who has and won't seek help or discourage them from seeking help. Number 2, if you say Black people don't ski or do anything that is not native to the regions of their original tribes. Number 3, if you call a Black person a name that reduces them down to their skin tone and you're Black. Number 4, if you still eat slave food, anything from a pig or a hog, and you know it is not good for you. Number 5, if you still say my mama beat me and I turned out all right, you're probably still a slave. Now, these things that I'm going to talk about is not to specifically hurt you, intentionally to hurt you, but to get you to start thinking about some of the things that you may say and do that may cause slave mentality, or to cause a fear within yourself or someone else for doing something that back in slave times that we would have, if we got caught doing it, that we could have lost our life or we could have gotten beaten for. So these are some things that I want you to think of that we still do today. Slavery was abolished over 154 years ago, and it's been so ingrained in us that we still do these things to one another more so than any other people that do to us. So number 1, if you say Black people don't go to counseling or see a therapist, and you're a Black person who has had trauma or know someone else who has had trauma and won't seek help or discourage them from seeking help, or you tell them to buckle up or be strong, Black people don't tell nobody their business, you're still a slave. During slavery, Black people were beaten if they sought help of any kind. They and the person who tried to help them were beaten as well. So it put a stigma of not seeking help and not helping anyone else who was seeking help. After 154 years, to continue to perpetuate that mental slavery and deny yourself care is not only considered self-hate and self-sabotage, but to put that hate on a whole generation of people is misguided and mental genocide. That makes you, in 2019, still a slave. Number 2, if you say Black people don't ski or do anything that is not native to the regions of their original tribes, you're still a slave. I'm quite sure if the slaves were in the mountain, if the Black people or Africans were in the mountains and there was snow, they might ski, they might do some different things. But because of the region that they were in, they did not do those things. It doesn't mean that they can't or that they won't, Just because a group of people are born in a particular region of the continent does not mean that they must stick to experiences based upon that region. Black people can do anything, and that has been proven time after time. Saying that a whole culture of people don't do something that isn't native to the region that they originated from is a mental catastrophe. There are some Black people who may want to ski, play hockey, or do something that is different from the natives, but won't do it because they feel the whole race of people will single them out, pick at them, or not support them if they do. When we do this, we are still perpetuating slavery from a limitation perspective. Massa wouldn't let us read or do anything that they had the freedoms or liberties to do, so we place that same limiting slave mentality back on one another. If you do this in 2019, you're still a slave. Number 3, if you call a black person a name that reduces them down to their skin tone and you're black, you're still a slave. Since slavery, we have been separated by skin tone. Those who were of a lighter hue were able to serve in the big house, and those that were of a darker hue were out in the fields. Those that were of a lighter hue may have had a few more benefits than those of a darker hue. Still today in 2019, we in supposedly terms of endearment and in anger call out somebody by their skin tone. Even to call a child your chocolate drop teaches them that they are already different and separate them from the non-chocolate drop. Excuse me. So let me repeat that because I want to make sure that you understand that. Even to call a child your chocolate drop teaches them that they are already different and separates them from the non-chocolate drops. You're programming them just as Massa did, and you don't even have a clue that you're doing it. Anytime you're distinguishing someone by their color, you're perpetuating slavery, no matter how you're doing it, in love or in hate. You're still perpetuating the same thing. Number 4, if you still eat slave food, anything from a pig or a hog, and you know it's not good for you, you're still a slave. There is no doubt that poverty is related to an unhealthy diet, but eating just anything is an ingrained slave tactic that has lasted from generation to generation since. We are carrying down or handing down with each generation a slave mentality of how to eat. And so eating all of those things that come from a pig, that is slave mentality. So slave tactics that has lasted from generation to generation since. A slave's diet mainly consists of a form of fatty pork, corn, or rice, which led to slaves either being physically impaired or chronically ill. If you're still eating this type of diet, knowing that fatty pork or white rice really isn't good for you, there is a deeply rooted slave mentality ingrained in your psyche. It is a form of a slow suicide because your value of yourself is not worth more than just surviving, but in reality, you're really not surviving, as the foods that you eat will someday kill you. You're still a slave. Number 5, if you still say, my mama beat me and I turned out all right, you're still a slave. During slavery, to keep the slaves in line, they were beaten. They were beaten if they asked a question, if they didn't understand, if they didn't stand in line the right way, if they looked the wrong way or did something that was not acceptable to the slave master. What is the difference between that and what we do to our children? If you're an adult and do any of these things, no one beats you. So why are you beating your children? If you don't stand in line, if you ask a question, if you do half the stuff that your children do, because as adults, some of y'all still do some of those immature things and no one beats you for doing it. So why are you going to beat your children? There are so many other ways of disciplining a child, but first try talking to them. They are human, aren't they? And most kids do understand. When you begin to break things down to them, they begin to understand, what is acceptable and what is not. If you're still beating your children before trying other ways of getting them to understand the behavior that they are exuding may not be acceptable, then you are now taking on the role of master and your child the slave in your own home. But in reality, you're still the slave because you're perpetuating the trauma of slavery onto your child. Now, these are 5 ways to know that you're still a slave, but there are so many more things that allow us to see that we are still perpetuating those things that were ingrained in us from slavery times. And so, not to say, single people out, but I really want you to really think about that. The things that you say, not only to yourself, but to your children, they are deeply rooted in slavery. Anything from the things that we were taught even religion. We can talk about that later, but even religion, we were taught to believe in something that we didn't originally believe in. We came from Africa. Our traditions and everything that we did was totally different. And once we got over here, those things were considered wrong. And we were beaten for doing any of those practices that we used to do back in our homeland. So if you're still perpetuating certain types of things from religion and not even allowing you to understand your original religion that you came from, or the rituals and traditions from which you came, then that is a form of slavery. It is allowing you to not know who it is that you really are and where you came from, and that you're adopting the practices of those who were your captors, or those people who brought you over here to do nothing but serve them. So don't get me wrong. Let me just say this. I have a whole host of friends who are not Black, and this is not to point fingers at them or anybody for that matter. What I'm really trying to get us to do is to begin to see ourselves differently and to change the behaviors in which that were ingrained within us, so that we can become to be the people that we were meant to be from origination. Okay, so this is not, to point fingers at people, but to get you to look at things a little bit differently. And in your day-to-day, think about the things that you say and do to yourself, but then those that you love you, who look just like you as well. Think about those things that you say and do to them that might be something that was deeply rooted from over 300 years ago, from slavery time, that has really been passed down from generation to generation to generation. Without even realizing these things, they can never be broken. The chain can never be broken. So we have to begin to look at those things. I hope you guys are understanding what it is that I'm trying to say, just to get you to look at things a little bit differently. Peace out. I love you guys. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy it. If you like the video, make sure that you subscribe to my channels, that you follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and that make sure if you're watching this on YouTube that you hit the bell on the left-hand side, my left, your right, hit the bell, that make sure that you will receive notification anytime that I post a new video. Do that. Let's talk. Let's do some different stuff. It's about to be 2020, the year of vision, clear vision. Let's get this. Love you guys. Peace out.
I want you to show me how to get to know someone like you, someone like you.